What's going on today, guys? So Batman v Superman is coming out tomorrow. Wow, I cannot believe it. I'm actually very excited for that film despite some lukewarm reviews I've been hearing. However, I'm going to give it a chance because I am an optimist. And today we're going to be talking about its predecessor, Man of Steel, which is directed by Zack Snyder and starring Henry Cavill as Superman. And just as a warning, guys, this review will contain some brief spoilers. You have been warned, so please watch Man of Steel and come back to this review. I'll never forget seeing the trailer in early 2013 being absolutely blown away. That trailer for me was like the best trailer I've ever seen because it looked so cool and it felt so different and dark. I cannot believe it has been 3 years since I saw this film in theaters, just about. I think this movie came out in June of 2013. And I remember during pre-production, director Zack Snyder personally said himself that this was a movie that was unlike any other. The way it was shot was supposed to never feel like it dragged, was supposed to never feel like it was boring. And the trailer made it look like it was going to be this true event film. It felt like it was going to be this cohesive, awesome, badass action film that we've all been waiting for. And I can remember sitting in that theater at the very end of the school year in 2013 thinking, something just doesn't feel right here. Rewatching this movie, Man of Steel is one of the most disappointing superhero films ever made. And for so many reasons. This is a very controversial film. This, I think, is one of the biggest split films ever, where a lot of people who said it was great thought it was really great, and a lot of people who disliked it really hated it. And then there are people just way in the middle, thinking it was just okay. And that's where I think I personally fall. There are many things I really liked about Man of Steel, yet there are things that I really disliked about this film. But I'm an optimist, so let's talk about the things I did like about Man of Steel, because there is still a lot to like here in my opinion. I like the new look of Krypton. It's a very great contrast from the original. This is like a desert, Pandora-esque planet, whereas the original had the icy, snowy Krypton. For one, I think that Russell Crowe, throughout the first half of the movie, is terrific. I think he is fantastic as Jor-El. He's a good actor, and I thought that in this movie, he was very good. Despite not having enough of that emotional punch, I do think Henry Cavill was a very good Superman. He's the best follow-up to Christopher Reeve by far. Brandon Routh, I have no idea who you are, but please stop acting. Henry Cavill was good as Superman, I think more because of his physical abilities than his emotional and acting abilities, because he's a little wooden in this movie. However, when he is Superman, he feels like a Superman. Kevin Costner and Diane both give very good performances as Superman's step-parents, and I really think that Kevin Costner was great in this film. Now, Diane Lane is very good in this movie, but Kevin Costner, I think, gets the most important screen time with Superman, and he teaches him to not show his powers because he believes the world isn't ready for that, even though Russell Crowe is trying to tell his son, yes, show your powers because you can save these people. And Kal-El, because that is his name, is left with a choice of which father he wants to side with and if he will ever become Superman. I really love the opening scene on Krypton. I think that scene is handled extremely well, and it gives a lot of good exposition. Not too much, but just enough information on our characters to really care about them when they start to die. With a lot of other superhero films, a lot of the characters aren't really developed, and that is an issue I will talk about later with a few other characters. However, for this scene in particular, these characters are pretty well fleshed out. And finally, let's talk about Michael Shannon as Zod. Now, I previously saw this man before I saw Man of Steel in Premium Rush, and I did not like that movie, and I did not like him at all. I felt like he was a very annoying actor, someone who I'm like, really? He was great as General Zod. This guy was an imposing, threatening villain, which is something we want in a superhero film. But it's the fact that he has a really big grudge against Superman that makes it all the better, so that when they go head-to-head at the end of the film, it feels slightly personal. I really like when Zod broadcasts the "you are not alone" part, because when you watch those types of shots, it feels like a horror movie when Superman enters his home. The shaky cam and the lack of lights really make it feel kind of like a horror movie. Having said that, though, there are many problems with Man of Steel, and a lot of them really can't be fixed. So let's discuss those issues in depth, and I'm going to try and point out the specifics of each problem. Amy Adams as Lois Lane I don't think was very good. And the reason why I say that is I like the performance, but what she has to do and how well the character is set up is very poor. It's very incoherent, and it's poorly told, because if you haven't seen a Superman film in your life, and if Man of Steel is the first Superman film you ever get to see, her character is barely fleshed out. I feel like her scenes with Clark Kent are very stale, and the romance is very very bad. A big issue I have with the DC Comics movies, particularly the Batman films, was that they were very tonally inconsistent. They could be very fun at times, they could be very dark, but I think an even bigger one is that the overall tone just didn't really work out for me. In Man of Steel, the tone was to literally Dark Knight Superman, and I feel like it just didn't work because Superman is not about fear. Batman is about fear. That's what I described in my Batman Begins review. Please check that out if you haven't already. I'll put a link in the description below. With Man of Steel, it just feels way too dark. Superman is about hope. And actually, Superman literally says that in the movie, that the S doesn't stand for Superman, it stands for hope.
It's not an S. On my world, it means hope.
Yet there's no real hope in this movie. I don't think anyone really felt hopeful at the end of this film, because Superman literally destroys Metropolis. You guys may or may not know that I really like Laurence Fishburne as an actor. The Matrix is one of my all-time favorite films, and his role as Morpheus is probably my favorite role that he's done. However, in this movie, his character has the exact same flaws as Lois Lane. He is very underdeveloped. They don't use him enough. He could have been used so much more. In the original Superman, we got to see Perry White all the time. Now in this movie, Perry White is only in it for like 10 minutes. My next issue is something that unfortunately can't be fixed, and I feel like it's gonna happen with Batman v Superman. Now, I never thought I'd be saying this to really criticize a film for its action. However, the action in this movie is so overblown with CGI that it just looks and feels so fake. And the amount of glass that they shatter in this movie is astronomical. I can't think of another movie where they smash or break more glass. They literally destroy Metropolis at the end of the film. So much glass is smashed, so much punching and kicking and fighting, that there's not really a lot of emotional core. It's just fight, 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 fight. Now, I love the precursor to Superman's fight in the little city when he takes Zod away from hurting his mom.
You think you can threaten my mother?
That last scene when they destroy Metropolis is so incredibly overblown. Even in the theater, I was like, this is a lot of destruction. This is very unnecessary destruction just for explosive eye candy. And for some movies, that's great, like Predator. But those are movies that are built off of suspense and have fleshed out characters. Now, I do really like Michael Shannon as the villain, so it made the fight a little more personal, but that's really it. My last big issue before I talk about the finale of the film is the flashbacks. And this is the one thing that I remember walking out of Man of Steel thinking, that was just completely silly. I really didn't like the fact that they just made little flashbacks throughout the entirety of the film. I do understand that the filmmakers and probably Zack Snyder were trying to make a different origin story than the original Superman, because in all honesty, it really is Superman 1 and Superman 2 just kind of combined. We didn't really need to see that amount of flashbacks. Now, many people may tell me in the comment section, well, you love Batman Begins. Batman Begins was a different movie because we'd never seen the origins of Batman portrayed in a live-action film. With Man of Steel, we've already seen 2 films that have fleshed Superman out. So to see a movie that really doesn't flesh out this new Superman in a very dark, bleak world just doesn't make it a very entertaining rewatch. And finally, let's talk about the controversial moment of truth when Superman has Zod and he's threatening to kill people and then he suddenly just snaps his neck. Superman is not supposed to kill anyone. With this, I'm actually very controversial. I think it's good, but at the same time, I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good simply because Superman is the sign of hope, but he's not supposed to kill people. However, I do think it's a good decision because that goes against his morals. And I feel like we're going to see more of that in Batman v Superman, more of him trying not to kill anyone. It was either you're going to kill Zod or let him rule the world. So Superman made the honest choice, even though he wasn't really supposed to do that. So overall, guys, despite a lot of big flaws with this movie, I can enjoy Man of Steel. I can put it in and rewatch the film and have a good time. However, it's not like The Dark Knight, the movie that I think it was trying to be for Superman, and it just failed because it just can't balance all of these characters being introduced at once. And the fight scenes are overblown messes. And what's unfortunate is I feel like the same problems are going to be there with Batman v Superman because we have to introduce the new Batman, which is Ben Affleck, Wonder Woman, Lex Luthor, Aquaman. There are so many characters that they have to introduce in the next movie in 2.5 hours. And this movie is, I think, maybe 10 minutes shorter than that. I'm going to give Man of Steel a B-. Guys, thank you so much for watching my reviews. As always, you guys are the greatest people ever. I love to hear all those comments, so send them in the comment section below. And stay tuned for my review of Batman v Superman coming very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned.